Normally, we know how fish can smell like. So now being inside, ew. Thank you for coming again to see my beautiful face. Okay, I'm just joking. Thank you for tuning in again. Today we're looking at lesson 5, and it says God is very intentional about you. This particular lesson was actually personal to me because I got to look at my life in retrospect and I realized how God had been intentional about me. Like everything that took place, whether it seemed like a mistake or a coincidence, everything was summing up to how intentional He was towards me, from a place of love, a place of His kindness, a place of displaying His faithfulness. Man, it just made me realize that no, God has been faithful. Everything that happened was not a mistake. It didn't happen out of let's just see how it goes for her. No, it was intentional, and I'm just grateful to God for that. Bible scholars are divided as to whether the story of Jonah really happened or it's just a fiction, especially because of how unrealistic it seemed to be for a man to spend 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a fish that can be choking, disgusting, and this kind of things. Like, no, I don't think this really happened. But then there are 3 things that prove that the story of Jonah actually took place. The first proof is that men have been known to survive being inside a fish today. It's either they were in the mouth or they were actually swallowed. And we've seen stories of these men coming out to say how it was and all that, something that seemed impossible. But personally, I know it was a miracle for them to have come out alive. The second thing is how that Bible itself is filled up with stories of miracles, of God's intervention in the lives of many. So for God to sustain Jonah in the belly of a fish for 3 days and 3 nights is child's play compared to many other great miracles we saw God do throughout the Bible. And it's something that depicts God's nature. Now the third proof is that we see Jesus referencing the story of Jonah in the New Testament, using it as an analogy for His death and resurrection, and how that He was going to spend 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth as a redemption plan for man. Now we want to delve deeper and we want to see from Jonah's perspective. How was it really like to be in the belly of a fish? Normally we know how fish can smell like. So now being inside, ew. So Jonah was thrown into the sea, and we are not sure if Jonah could swim, but one thing we are sure of is that his survival in the sea, in the middle of nowhere, was time bound. If nothing was done about it in few seconds, he would just be gone, dead, and forgotten. And the next verse said, God prepared a fish to swallow Jonah. How? Like, where did the fish come from? How did it know that Jonah had entered? Like, it's the accuracy of the timing for me. Did you see how intentional God was to making sure that Jonah was kept safe? We see that Jonah being in the belly of the fish was not as a form of punishment from God, but a redemption plan to save Jonah from dying in the middle of nowhere. My God. It's how that God is so intentional about every aspect of our lives, about seasons that He sent our way to help us, to train us. Guys, God will go through any extent to bring you back to Him. Whenever you find yourself in the belly of a fish, know that it is not a form of punishment from God, but a form of redemption to bring you back to Him, to align you back to His plans, to His will, to what He has proposed for you. Maybe you were derailing, maybe there was pride somewhere, maybe there was anger somewhere that needed to be trimmed down. Maybe there was a training that you needed to go through for you to come out better and bigger for that purpose He's preparing you for. God is intentional about you. So whenever you find yourself in a situation that seems like it's slow or not moving fast or not going the way you intended for it, I think you should calm down and find out what God is saying to you in that season. Tell him your mind as well. Ask him questions. God, what is the meaning of this season? The Bible would refer to it as the afflictions of the righteous. Seasons that you cannot explain. But God is doing it out of a place of love and intentionality so that you can align back to his will, his purposes, his plans, his directions for your life. Just know that whatever it is, God has you in his best interests. Please, do not neglect seasons that would require you to sincerely cry out to God. Do not neglect seasons that will require you to stay more in his presence. There are seasons that are just there. It seems like you are stuck, but it's actually a season for you to stay, a season for you to understand his word for your life, a season for you to understand his plans and purposes for your life the more. You see, the earlier you realize the purpose for these seasons, the better. When God saw that Jonah had realized his mistake and was repentant of it, he told the fish to vomit him out. He told the fish to return him back to exactly where he was supposed to be, Nineveh, the place of his calling. God is directing you back to him. The belly of a fish is a place where God has prepared to direct you back to him. Do not neglect the seasons. The earlier you realize the seasons, the better for you. It saves you time, it saves you energy, it saves you being stuck at a position. In fact, it's a way for you to grow and become a better version of yourself. God is indeed intentional about you.